Oh, lots of people there. Very, very exciting. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Healthy Living Live. I'm your host, Chef AJ, and back by popular demand is my guest, Dr. Doug Lisle. Dr. Lisle is the co-author of the wonderful book, The Pleasure Trap, which is now available on audio CDs. He is the psychologist at both the True North Health Center and the McDougall 10-day program, both located in Santa Rosa, California. And he is the star of the weekly podcast called Beat Your Genes, which you can listen to on either Blog Talk Radio or iTunes. There's over 100 episodes now, and you can even call in live Wednesday night when the show airs live at 8:30 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. Pacific time. And if that weren't enough, he is the founder of the website esteemdynamics.com, which I will type on the screen in a little bit, with lots of wonderful free resources in the form of audio and video content. And you can even book a private consultation with him right there. So welcome again, Dr. Lisle. Thank you so much for coming back.
Oh, you bet. Good to see you, AJ.
Thank you so much. So we have 12 questions today.
Okay.
2 of them are left over from the last time we did a live interview. And 10 of them actually came from the Facebook group of fans of Beat Your Gene podcast. There is some crossover. There are some people in Ultimate Weight Loss in that group. So we might have some somewhat different questions today. So Dr. Lisle, did you think of the name Beat Your Genes for the podcast, or did Nate G think of that?
No, a good friend of mine named Larry Gitlin thought of that.
It's a great name.
Yes. Yeah, that's
it's a great name. I always thought if I had a podcast, I would call it Fit Into Your Genes.
Yes. Okay. Very good.
Terrific. All right. So the first question is from Kara. She says, I'd love to know what Dr. Lisle thinks about the concept of codependency. I'd wager that the majority of us women who have lived our lives overweight suffer from some amount of codependency. Take it away, Dr. Lisle.
Codependency is really the notion of being agreeable. And so that's really, if you just substitute the term agreeable, then what's going to happen is pretty soon agreeable people will often find themselves in relationships where they're being exploited. They're being exploited by people who are more disagreeable than they are. And so you can easily imagine yourself in a situation where one person is a 80-20 trader. In other words, very disagreeable. They want things their way, etc. And another person is a 20-80 trader. Very, very nice person, very agreeable, very giving. Now, the notion of codependency, I think, exploded onto the scene, 30 years ago with a book by some addiction victim. I think the title of the book was Codependent No More. And this lady was just writing her life story about how, I don't know, her partner was an addict and then she codepended her way through life and how terrible it was. I don't know about it. This was just, I think I heard about this in grad school. There was no research, no theory, nothing other than a woman's observation of her own life. And then this became a catchword that seemed to have some truth in it, as many of these things do. And we find that truth down through a more precise concept of agreeable. So agreeable people are likely to wind up eventually in situations where they're being exploited. Not always, but they often will be. And it's not surprising to us when that happens. So it's not surprising that an agreeable person might wind up, for example, in a relationship with somebody with an addiction. And they may stay in there for a long time, whereas a more disagreeable person or a person in the middle of the bell curve would say, no, this is too much trouble. I'm not going to put up with this. This is not the deal I signed up for. And but you can imagine that a very agreeable person might say, but basically just that this is sort of their lot in life, and it's only the right thing to do, and to, et cetera, continue to compensate their life towards the other person's liabilities. So we can now call this codependent if we want. It's not, you're not, I don't even know what that means. What, we half addicted to the same drug that the other person is addicted to? It's like, I don't even understand the reasoning. Let's just back it up and call it what it is. And that is that the agreeable person feels an obligation to continue to stick out a relationship and to continue to invest in a relationship, even though the payoff matrix on that relationship has shifted to the negative in the face of an addictive process. So that's what I would call it. Now we're gonna, I suppose, the person's question is, do overweight people wind up more in codependent relationships than other people? I don't think so necessarily at all. I think that what this person is sniffing is the possibility that when people are overweight, they feel like they have essentially. Let's talk about this. A person who might be substantially overweight in a relationship with another person who is not, may feel like they are inherently being over rewarded in the relationship because of their weight. And so as a result of that, when you believe you are being over rewarded, you are walking on eggshells, and you are effectively feeling like you are getting the better deal, that the other person is more benefit than cost relative to you. And as a result of you being essentially over rewarded in the relationship because they are gracing you with their presence, you are essentially like an employee who believes they are being overpaid. And so if you believe that you are being overpaid, then what that makes you as an employee is feeling vulnerable and feeling highly agreeable. So the boss says, we need you to work on Saturday. Oh, sure, not a problem. Okay. Why? Because we don't want to lose that job because we're being overcompensated. So being overcompensated or being overpaid or over rewarded, however you want to call it, is a prescription for paranoia and agreeableness, is what it is. And so overweight people certainly, let's take another situation where two people started out in a relationship where there was a reasonable trade. And now we look 10 years later and one of them is carrying around an extra 75 pounds. So now they clearly feel that they are over rewarded. So they have clearly chiseled their partner out of the attractiveness that their partner, the deal that had been made. And so as a result, the overweight person feels over rewarded, essentially overcompensated, and therefore they need to make up for it by being agreeable. And one of the ways they can make up by being agreeable is by not putting their foot down and walking when the other person has an alcohol problem or some other kind of drug problem or some gambling problem or porn problem or whatever the heck it is. Okay, so you can see what this is. So this is the analysis that is useful to kind of actually look through what's really happening. One of the things that this kind of analysis will do is it will strip its way through any self-congratulatory analysis that comes with the concept of codependency. I will hear people say things like, well, I just decided I needed to do something for me, or et cetera. I needed to stand up, or I've been doing too much for other people. It's like, well, let's look at what's really been happening. What's really been happening is that all motives are being sifted through a complex cost-benefit analytic process. And so if a person has been giving, there's a reason. And that is because they have cues in their environment to suggest that they have been over-rewarded. That's why they're doing it. Now, so that isn't always the case. So it is sometimes the case that some people are naturally hyper-agreeable. There simply happen to be highly agreeable people, and that they sometimes wind up in relationships, unfortunately, where they're being exploited, and that happens. But we don't usually hear from those people, and they're usually not complaining, and they don't use the term codependent. Codependent is a little red flag that tells you that someone feels like they have been pushed into a corner by their own liabilities that they have not figured out how to master and to deal with. And as a result of that, they have given way and given ground in relationships and essentially allowed another person to compensate for the deficiencies in the relationship by being in some fashion exploitative, sloppy, self-destructive, etc. So when I hear the term, well, I've been codependent, what I really hear the term is, I myself have problems that I have not faced and dealt with. And as a result of my embarrassment and the liabilities that those problems bring to my relationships, I have been compensating in this relationship and letting this other person essentially walk all over me in domains that are important to me. And I am frustrated with this. That is what codependency really is. Okay. So hopefully this helps us. There's there's some very famous phrases throughout the history of philosophy. And I don't know who it is that says this phrase. It might have been, Francis Bacon or Nietzsche or, some big shot. Somebody here is going to look this up and they're going to know it. I have a feeling it's a late 19th century American poet. That's what's got it rattling around in my head, like a Walt Whitman or somebody like that. Might have been Thoreau. And the phrase goes something like this, that it is as impossible for a man to be cheated by another man as it is for a thing to be and not be at the same time. In other words, the notion is you did it to yourself. Okay, so anybody that has bought into a get-rich-quick scheme only to find their money go up in smoke, the truth of the matter is that you sort of knew it was a get-rich-quick scheme and you didn't check out the details and you were hopeful, and that's why you shoved over the $5,000 to the slick salesman in suede shoes. Okay, so did he cheat you? Yes, but you also cheated yourself. Okay, so this is where this is the analysis that I bring to the concept of codependency. Look very carefully at any, quote, codependent relationship, and look carefully inside the individual that has identified themselves as codependent. And let's look inside and find out whether that person is in that codependent process is in fact a process where they are stepping over a liability that they bring to the relationship, that they don't want to deal with and haven't figured out how they're going to manage, and they are instead allowing some other exploitative process in another domain to bleed into their life, and that's what they're frustrated about.
Wow.
Okay. All right.
Thank you. That was such a brilliant explanation. And we have people watching from all over the world, including Australia and Germany. And as you were giving your explanation, I was thinking you would be great on television, like a relationship or dating show. I think you would be fabulous at doing that. And for those of you watching live, please know that there's a share button right where you are, and you can be sharing this broadcast live with all of your friends in real time. So thanks for doing that. So Heather wants to know why our hormones cause us to have cravings and what we can do about it.
Oh, you know what? I actually don't know. I do know that hormones for women in their cycle, fertile women in their cycle will crave chocolate more than normal. So I'm not really sure why, and it's specifically chocolate. It isn't just rich food in general. So there's probably some kind of chemicals in chocolate that specifically bang on those circuits. Let's be clear. It's not very much of the variance of the issue. The number one reason a person craves chocolate is that they had it recently, and it's banging on their memory circuits. So your hormones actually have a very small amount of variance in determining anything with respect to your hunger or cravings or anything else under the sun. So let's not get carried away with some pop health explanation as to why it is that a person is struggling with the pleasure trap. We struggle with the pleasure trap because the pleasure trap is a disturbance in our current environment that draws our natural instinct into it. It's a potentially catastrophic and always disturbing generator of error is what it is. And so that is the reason that people struggle with the way that they struggle, not their hormones. Your hormones do what your hormones do for various and sundry biological reasons. We're not going to stop them. We're not going to get away from a desire for a greasy chicken sandwich with French fries by taking some new hormone shot in the 22nd century. That will not solve the problem. The problem can only be solved by a consistent adherence to a healthy diet, which will keep the palate sharp and keep the memories of the rich food quiet as we can. That's what will reduce those cravings.
Yep. Well, that makes sense. And you have some agreement, like Tina's saying, with it, because she doesn't eat it anymore. She doesn't crave it anymore. I've always heard the saying that what we eat today, we crave tomorrow. So
sure. You bet.
Thanks. Okay. So Jennifer from the Fans of the Beat Your Genes podcast group wants to know, does Dr. Lisle ever drink wine or other alcohol? And I would add, why or why not?
No, I don't. The reason why is that I just never did, and I never developed any taste for it at all. So wine just tastes like sour vinegar to me, and I'm sure that there's many aficionados out there saying, "Oh my God, what he's missing," and I sometimes envy. I live in wine country. I mean, ironically, so that's where True North Center and the McDougall Center are smack in the middle of wine country. Such is life, okay? And people go wine tasting, and I've been to the wineries, and some of them are beautiful, and I almost wish that I did, just because I feel like I'm missing out on a little elegance and interest in life. But no, I just not interested, never was. And that's when your best friend's Alan Goldhammer and you're never invited to a party. This is what happens to you. That's what happens.
I kind of figured that would be the answer.
Yes. Why or why not? I mean, the truth of the matter is, for me, obviously it's to use a gross and distorted way of looking at this, and I don't mean to be this brutal, but if you'd never tried heroin, you never knew what you missed. And so as a result, it's like, well, fine, never did it. Right. And the same thing is true with alcohol for me. I actually was accidentally made tipsy once. It was a total accident. Somebody had put some, I would drink virgin drinks with friends, and somebody put some alcohol in a virgin drink, and I barely knew it was there, and I didn't want to make a fuss about it. And it was on an empty stomach, and I actually got a little tipsy, and people were cracking up. And because I was actually slurring my words a little bit, and it was sort of entertaining to have this license to say whatever I wanted. So there was a person there that I didn't like very much, and I slurred out a couple of left-handed compliments. And it's a long story. Sort of a shirt-tail relative that I didn't have any fondness for, and so people thought that was great fun, and including the victim of my slurred wit. However, it never happened again, and the reason is I actually didn't like the feeling at all, and I'm sort of fortunate that I do not happen to like that feeling. There's people that the very first time they get that feeling, they fall in love with it, and that's just genes. So my genes don't happen to be of that ilk, and that's why it worked out that way. I've been tipsy exactly once in my life. Wow,
good for you. And I guess I'm fortunate, Dr. Lisle. I can say whatever I want, even when I don't have alcohol.
Well said, AJ. Very true.
So, Peter, you had mentioned when answering the question on codependency that agreeability was involved. And yes. Peter has a question about agreeability. He says, what general life advice would you give to those who are low in agreeability?
Wow. I would say, I'm not sure what general life advice I would give. I would, when people are low in agreeability, they tend to be very threatening to other people with their anger. So low agreeable people tend to are often angry. The reason why is if you're low and agreeable, you have a distorted view of what is fair. So the average person, we're going to say in principle, is what I call a 50-50 trader. So we would consider that person, quote, reasonable. So if we have a 50-50 deal, each of us are going to make a $20 profit off the thing, we shake hands and we say, fair enough. Okay. If a person is very agreeable, then I can say, out of this deal, I actually think I worked a little harder, so I'm going to take $25 and I'll give you 15. And the agreeable person will say, oh, that's fine. Okay. So now we've got a person who's a 40-60 trader. Very sweet, very nice, very easy to get along with. All right. Now, if I said to a disagreeable person we're going to call them a 60-40 or a 70-30 trader, where I said, okay, well, we're going to divide this thing and we're each going to make $20. And I'm like, no, I think my contribution is worth more. I think I should get $30 and you get 10. I'm like, well, now, wait a second. We're both spending the same amount of time. We have the same level of expertise. No, it's going to be 50-50. That would be me as a 50-50 trader coming back and saying, no, I'm going to insist on 50-50. And they are thinking that they're being cheated. Okay. So the disagreeable person, a person who is consistently disagreeable, that's why we would call them disagreeable, is someone who actually is walking around with a genetically built distortion in their head about what's fair. And so this doesn't make them a bad person. It just makes them a person that is more likely to exploit other people. And one of the methods by which that takes place is their anger. So we are all capable of being angry. A sweet person is capable of being angry if you're very unfair to them, enough unfair to them that they actually will feel a rare moment of rage. So if you start to steal a woman's child or some sweet girl's little puppy, she's going to be pretty upset. And so everyone has the capacity to be angry if they believe that they are being treated unfairly. The disagreeable person believes they're being treated unfairly often. In other words, and sometimes in many cases, they feel like it's happening all day long. In all of these transactions that keep coming up to them, they just feel like they're being cheated at the pizza place. They're being cheated at the dry cleaners. They have to stand in line too long. Why should they have to stand in line so long, et cetera, et cetera. In other words, that's a disagreeable person. That's a very disagreeable person. Now, so what advice would I give to disagreeable people? I would say that that is probably important for you to, this would be important for many people, but it would be particularly important for you to be in what I call a position of power with respect to your work life. In other words, you better work extra hard and be extra skilled and be willing to try to put yourself in a position where you're the supervisor, because life is going to be difficult for you if you have people over you that are sort of telling you what to do. That's going to be particularly difficult for a disagreeable person. Probably best to find a way in life to be your own boss. My best friend's kind of disagreeable. If anybody's ever met Alan, people know, he's not super disagreeable, but he's no day at the beach. He is on the disagreeable side of the continuum, not heavily, but he's there. And this means he's better off being in charge. So he actually knew this from the jump early in life and knew he wasn't going to work for anybody. John McDougall, also disagreeable. So also you can absolutely work with John, and people do, and people like working for John, but John wouldn't like working for anybody else. You can forget about that. That was never going to happen. His last day of his training is when he had it out with the chief at his hospital, and the guy said, "John, I'm worried about you. That all this diet stuff, you're gonna just treat a bunch of hippies, and you're gonna go broke, and it's not good for your family." And John poked his finger at the guy's big abdomen, said, I think there's going to be a lot of people that are going to need my help. So this is one bit of advice. Another bit of advice is that in close relationships, when you are in arguments, you have to have a little card in your wallet that says, I could be wrong here. In other words, you could be wrong. If you are a disagreeable person and you are in close relationships with other people and you are angry with them, it's very likely that the people in your life that have stuck with you are pretty agreeable. They wouldn't have, two disagreeables don't stick around very long together. So if you're a disagreeable, you need to have a special note in your head that you have a tendency to be unfair. And when you are ready to threaten and use that anger to intimidate, you need to back up, okay, and take a walk and get a little perspective on the situation if you can. So that's a little bit of advice that I would give to the disagreeables. And the advice to the agreeables is avoid those people. Yeah, as much as you can. Oftentimes disagreeable people can be extremely talented. They can be driven. They can be fabulous in many ways. But we want to have our relationships with them in such a way that we are not at their mercy. That we want to don't build your life around a disagreeable person. Your life can intersect with them, but building around them can be a problem.
Oh, that makes sense. And I think one of the reasons I married Charles is because of his lack of disagreeableness.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely, AJ.
So,
I got that.
And you're agreeable. Agreeable people are just so much more pleasant to be around.
Yes, that's how you'll feel that with animals too.
Yeah.
So there's a naughty cat that lives on the other side of my cul-de-sac and comes over and tries to hassle my cats. And that cat is just a disagreeable animal. It just is. And my cats are sweet. And so that's just, these are parts of nature. So disagreeable can be fine, but we intersect with them. Don't overlap too much.
Yeah. I think it's probably a good trait like in an attorney, you know?
Yes. Great trait. Great trait.
Right.
Yes.
Thank you.
And a revolutionary path, visionary doctor. It's a good trait too. If you're going to be a visionary revolutionary, you better have your teeth better be extra sharp.
Yeah. Terrific. So Emma wants to know, what does Dr. Lisle think of the mindful eating and health at every size movement?
I don't know that much about the mindful eating. I know a little bit about it. I've heard that it, of course, doesn't work at all. So there's no support for it. I could be wrong about mindful. Intuitive eating is the thing that is a total scientific failure. However, people do feel better. And what was the other part of it? Mindful eating. And what was the other part?
And health at every size movement.
Health at every size movement. Let's talk about what is probably going on there. What we're seeing is that people's esteem is hurt by being overweight. So how valuable others find them in terms of romance, in terms of friendships, and in trade. There is some amount of cost associated with being overweight. And that cost may be minimal or that cost could be severe. But you feel the cost. So the person is, you have an esteem meter in your head that is watching how other people treat you, and you are cataloging why it is that you think they are treating you in the way that they are treating you. This is essential for your ability to survive and thrive as a social animal. So if you lost the big game, then by something stupid that you did, so you mouthed off and shoved the referee, then it's going to turn out that people will look at you and they will have comments about that. And there will be a way for them to leak their disgust and frustration with you. Um, if you are struggling with a weight problem, you will pick up hundreds of little tiny signals from your social environment, in a given month. And those little tiny signals will be telling you that this particular issue is an impediment to you being esteemed higher. And so you feel it, and it's a problem, and you don't like it, as you shouldn't. And that's a signal to tell you this is something about your self-presentation that is hurting us, and is etc. So a great many devices have been attempted to be invented in order to try to mitigate those feelings. And people, the result, the reason why people esteem us less and that we can feel it is that they esteem other people relatively more. Esteem is a competitive process. So all authors are not equally beloved and successful. All singers are not equally beloved and successful. All comedians, all politicians, etc. It's all different. Everybody plays their own game. Everybody advertises what it is that they have to offer the village, and everybody gets differential feedback on how successful they have been. And it's going to turn out that weight is a potentially extremely costly liability that people carry around. We know this, or there wouldn't have been over 75,000 titles published on weight loss in the English language. Okay, it wouldn't be the number one personal goal of human beings in westernized society is to lose weight. It's not to make more money or to have bigger muscles. It's to lose weight. That's the most common personal goal. Okay, so that didn't happen by accident. That happened because other people penalized people for having those problems by the esteem signals that they sent them. So, as you can imagine, because this problem is so difficult to deal with and is somewhat mysterious to people, people don't understand that the solution isn't to eat less and exercise more, even though that seems obviously true. That is not the solution. So people are lost and they're flailing around. There's only one true solution to the problem, which is to get out of the pleasure trap. And that solution is the least palatable, literally and figuratively, of all of the options. Okay. So as a result of that, what happens? People will flounder and they will fail repetitively. This is going to be very likely to be the case in most of the time. And so as a result, people are essentially stuck with this problem of having esteem signals that they don't like. And they don't know what to do. They've tried 37 times, different diets, they failed, still have the same problem. And they keep getting the same esteem signals, and they feel the same frustration about the difference between what they think they deserve in terms of esteem signals and what they're getting. But the world is relentless, and it just won't give it to you if it won't give it to you. I don't care how great a singer you think you are. If you're not that great a singer, they're not going to give it to you. I was listening to some music on my, what do you call that, the Alexa, and I don't know how it came up, and I couldn't believe this voice, and I thought, that must be Ella Fitzgerald. I mean, I've just almost never in my life have I heard a voice so easy with such extraordinary range. And so I asked Alexa, and it was Lady Gaga. And I had never heard Lady Gaga before. I knew she was some big shot, but I'd never listened to her sing. It's like, oh, okay. Well, now we know why the whole world knows that name. Is it's a Ella Fitzgerald quality extraordinary voice. So the world gives you the feedback. Is what it does. And so what do people do about this? When they're in trouble and they're trapped, they try to find a way around it. So they're going to band together in little coalitions, and they're going to say, we're going to do it this way. Okay. How about if we're doing mindful eating now? So we're going to pick up the fork, and then we're going to chew, and we're going to follow these little rules, and we're going to meditate, and I don't know what you're going to do. Hey, either get out of the pleasure trap or you don't. And when you're out of the pleasure trap, be as mindless as you want. Like I never think about the food that I eat. It's once it's in front of me, the last I can be talking to my friends, I can be looking at sports, I can be chomping fast, chomping slow, biting and swallowing. It doesn't make any difference. It's the pleasure trap or not. I don't care how mindful you are. It's what you're eating. It's not how you're eating it. It's a nonsense idea. Now, you think the gophers are the ones that aren't mindful or overweight? You got to be kidding me. Okay, this is all a bunch of hooey. And what's it about? It's about status defense. It's about being able to tell other people, well, I'm doing mindful eating. Okay, well, good for you. You and everybody at Weight Watchers. Everybody at Weight Watchers, it's a big failure. So the Weight Watchers evidence shows that Weight Watchers is a in terms of weight loss, it's a totally useless operation. Let's figure out why on earth are they in existence? How is it that they're the most successful weight loss program in the United States monetarily when they have absolutely zero success? Answer, they must be solving the esteem problem. They're not solving the weight problem. They must be mitigating the esteem problem in some fashion, and they are. So if you are 100 pounds overweight and you go to your work and everybody there is telling you, essentially they're giving you those cues, you sit down and lunch with your little candy bar that says Weight Watchers on it. It costs $3. And you say, I'm doing Weight Watchers. Oh, well, okay, Sally's doing Weight Watchers. So she's doing what she's supposed to be doing. Yes, I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm doing Weight Watchers. And I'm doing mindful eating. What's the other thing? I forgot it, Jay.
It was health at every size.
Health at every size. Health at every size. Yeah, I'm healthy. I'm healthy. My doctor says my numbers look good. Yeah, I'm healthy. Yeah, fine. Nobody cares. Okay, so you're not healthy. You could survive, but you're putting all kinds of pressure on your bones. You're putting pressure on your heart. I mean, obviously, this is through essentially no fault of your own. You're trapped in an incredible environment that it's going to take unusual diligence and knowledge to get out of the trap. Can you? You bet. Have people done it? Absolutely, they've done it. You know, tens of thousands of people have done this. This is not at all impossible. It's just difficult. But these movements, whether it's Weight Watchers, intuitive eating, mindful eating, I forget what this thing was again. What's the other one you said?
It was just two. It was mindfulness or mindful eating and health at every size.
Health at every size. I can't keep them straight. Whatever it is, the story's the same. You're fine. You're healthy. Doesn't matter that you're 150 pounds overweight. Health at any size. You can be healthy at any size. You can be healthy enough that you're not going to die, but it won't change your esteem signals. Okay, the esteem signals will continue relentlessly. So what do I think about these things? I think they're little tiny band-aids over a very big, gaping, gushing esteem hemorrhage. That's what I think they are. And I think in that way they are silly. And don't distract yourself for 6 months trying this out to see how this works. You may find that in a coalition of similarly afflicted people, that you send each other some positive esteem signals behind this, and you wind up feeling 10% emotionally better for short periods of time. It's a losing proposition. Okay, let me tell you how it is that you actually go about this problem. You get, if you need to, some help like you're getting here. And then what you do, or you don't have to get help, or you can just buy a copy of the starch solution and the problem's over. Okay, now what are you going to do? Now what you do is you resolve that you are actually going to do this. Run an experiment. See what this feels like for 30 days. And the reason why I would set it short is the following, because I want a person to see what happens to the most important thing in their life in 30 days. And the most important thing in their life is their self-esteem. The most important esteem signal that there is your self-esteem. It's what your internal audience thinks of you. And it's watching you. and it's watching what it is that you do. So instead of trying to mitigate the negative esteem signals that we get from other people if we have excess weight or any other problem, what we want to do instead is we want to impress our own internal audience with our diligence. And folks, you can change how you feel about yourself very quickly, far quicker than you can change what other people think of you by losing a bunch of weight and being successful. You can actually substantially change how you feel, usually within 7 days. Okay? 7 days of not half-ass B- work, but 7 days of A+ Chef AJ wacky crazy work. Okay? If a person will actually grit their teeth and do this even for a week, what they will find is their internal audience starting to shift. It won't be cheering you, but it'll start to feel like, you know what? You deserve some respect. That is your internal audience sending an esteem signal to your esteem meter. And no matter what other people are saying, doesn't matter what they're saying, your internal audience will know. Okay? You do that for 30 days and you're going to find something interesting, that it will strengthen and grow and become more determined and actually increase its internal confidence, that the entire system will be way better, even though you're only down 7 or 8 pounds. So you went from 80 pounds down to 72 pounds overweight. Nobody can tell, but one person knows, and that's you. Okay. And your self-esteem can change dramatically in that 30 days to the point where you feel very differently about yourself. And then later on, after you've lost the 60 of those 80 pounds, when other people's eyes are wide open that haven't seen you in 6 months, and they're like, wow, that's also nice, but don't get seduced. What counts is the self-esteem. That's where we want to stay right on top of this. We have 100% control of self-esteem. The self-esteem mechanism is under 100% indirect control. We do not have direct control of it. We cannot command self-esteem in and out of existence. But what we can command in and out of existence is the effort that are required to earn the self-esteem. And if we are diligent and we work hard, the self-esteem spontaneously emerges within days, if not within hours. Okay, so that is what I have to say about all these other window dressings that don't address the underlying problem. There is a way to address it, and that's what we do here.
Oh, great. Thanks, Dr. Lisle. You know, this health at every size movement, it sounds a little bit like the ego trap that you describe, because the people that I know that are proponents of it are ones that have not been able to, as you say, get out of the pleasure trap and lose weight. So it's so interesting. And I've been taking notes as you speak. And when you said, I'll quote you because it's so important, I want everyone to hear it again. When you're out of the pleasure trap, be as mindless as you want. It's what you're eating, not how. And that's so true. And it's the same thing when we did the interviewing on the weighing and measuring. It's not how much you're eating, but what. And if people would understand what Dr. McDougall is saying in the starch solution and just not be afraid and eat enough starch, they really could eat as much as they want and be slim. So
yes. Yeah.
Yep.
One caveat that we've talked about, which is that the rich side of healthy food is something that people will, they can condition a cram circuit. So we know that that's an additional little problem, but that's its own specific issue. We don't have to be particularly diligent. We just have to not be repetitively, routinely cramming rich food on the right side of AJ's scale, the red side of the scale. So that's all we have to do. Otherwise, you know, we're not going to cram potatoes and we're not going to cram starch. There's no way. Squash. That's not what's going to happen. We know what we're going to cram. We're going to cram things that are nuts, seeds, dried fruit. These are bread-like products that might be whole wheat and whole grain, crackers that are, you know, whole crackers that are biochemically healthy, but they are rich in terms of calorie density. These are the kinds of things that people will wind up cramming, and then we can set up that kind of a circuit. So yeah, we can't be completely and 100% uncognizant of that possibility, but essentially the answer is eat the right foods and don't worry about anything else.
Right. Thank you. So Estelle asks, she says, if we have abstained from anything sugary for a long time, and then we eat something with lots of sugar that makes us feel physically sick, why doesn't our brain kick in and protect us by making sure that we no longer want to eat sugar?
Oh, well, the truth of the matter is that your brain is not that the taste of the sugar is an innate signal of biological success. So the fact that you can overdo it, and it is unlikely to be the sugar itself that causes you to feel sick. It's probably something that's coming along with the sugar, more likely to be something that's high fat. So so what will probably make people feel sick most of the time is a combination of high fat, high sugar food if they haven't been used to it, because the system is not used to breaking down all that fat. So you could feel sick. And so what's going to happen is that you probably will feel a more of a specific aversion to that specific food for a short period of time. Essentially, this is how the nervous system is really smart. In other words, it doesn't want you to not like the taste of sugar, because the taste of sugar is a recognition of a valuable chemical. But if it turns out that you subsequently feel ill, let's suppose you ate like six Cinnabons. Okay, you hadn't eaten anything unhealthy for a year and a half, and then somebody brought a bunch of Cinnabons and they left them there in front of you on the counter. They were going to take them somewhere. Then they canceled the little meeting, and it turns out there's 8 Cinnabons there, and they took one, and another kid took one. There's 6 left, and everybody left the house, and you ate them all. Okay, so what's going to happen? Your nervous system is going to code the specific taste of the Cinnabon with the feeling. That's how it's going to work. So it's not going to say sugar is what made me sick, and it's not going to say fat is what made me sick. It's going to say the taste of Cinnabon made me sick, because it's not going to want to rule out those experiences, because those experiences are coded as biologically valuable. Okay, so that's how we code a specified aversion. Specific aversions or conditioned aversions like that. That's a characteristic of animal behavior, is to have a conditioned aversion if you get sick after you eat something specific. And those conditioned aversions, occasionally, if it's a really novel food and it's also you're super sick, that conditioning can last for a long time. It could even potentially last a lifetime. You might be conditioned, have a conditioned aversion forever, but you probably would. The system isn't designed that way. The system is designed to say, the reason we got sick is there was a little bit of bacterial contamination in that food. So we need to be careful next time we eat that food, that to not eat as much of it. So the next time we'll kind of nibble at it and eat less, and then we'll see if that next batch makes us sick. So that's why. So it's a long answer to the question about why it is that when we eat crap, we don't, and when we feel lousy, we don't learn the lesson to not eat the crap. That's not how you're designed. The reason why you want to eat the crap is that it's hitting the pleasure centers of the brain, telling the brain that this is super valuable food, that it's actually super normal, and it's not going to make the connection that a more generalized connection that rich food is bad. Never going to happen.
All right. Well, thank you. So back to the pleasure trap. Diana
Right.
says that she's stuck in the pleasure trap, but she's not able to stay at True North because of financial restraints. What's the easiest way for me to reset my taste buds? I'm thinking of doing a short juice fast or smoothie fast. What do you think, Dr. Lisle?
You could do a short juice fast. The juice I would use would be, half vegetable juice. It wouldn't be a bunch of fruit juice, but it might be like, maybe carrot and apple juice. So you might go to Whole Foods Market and get a half a gallon of each, and then mix those together. And I would dilute them. I would cut them by 50% of water. So I'd have half apple juice, half carrot juice, and then half of the whole thing be water. And you might do that for a couple of days, and that would be you'd be sick of it after a couple of days, which is fine. And your palate would have become more sensitive to sodium and fat over that period of time. So that's one thing that you could do. People can also do a water fast. You can, if you got a 3-day weekend, or if you got a little bit more time, you could certainly do 2 or 3 days on your own, quite safely, as long as you're in reasonably good health. I wouldn't recommend this for a 65-year-old cardiac patient. Don't do it. But if you're 37 years old and otherwise in good health, there's no reason why you couldn't go a couple days without food. And even 2 days without food can be plenty. In other words, it can be enough for you to be like, wow, I don't want to do that, and I really want to eat. And you can be quite a bit hungrier than you've been for a long time. And at that point, healthy food, you should have your environment cleaned out before you ever do this, so that the only foods that are in your environment are going to be the foods that you're going to want to follow up something like that with. So juice fast, water fast, these are ways to quick start and course correct you. Yeah, no problem. And they're always there. It doesn't matter how many times you do it. You could do a 2-day water fast 30 times this year if you wanted to. There's a lot of people that might fast. There's people that are fasting 1 day a week, and they find that to be a useful way for them to course correct. So yeah, any combination of those things, all good.
Great. Well, thank you so much. We have 5 questions left. I think we could probably get through at least one more, possibly 2.
All right.
Lainey says, does going back to college in my 50s put me at an advantage from life experience or a disadvantage in regard to academics? I still, after all these years, have not been able to come to terms with not graduating from college.
Well, I'm glad you are going back and graduating from college. You are neither an advantage or disadvantage in your 50s. Your brain is effectively the same brain that you had when you were 22. It's got pretty much the same assets and liabilities. There's no advantage here other than that, I don't know, you may be a little bit better at, you're not going to be out drinking and partying the way you might have been in your 20s. So maybe your life's a little bit more stable. So no liabilities or assets. So your job is to, study, take notes, make yourself quizzes on those notes. In other words, go through a methodical process, invest the time and energy to do things well and methodically. Basically, outwork your competition, and you should do fine. And that is a very good thing for you to do. Now, I'm going to very briefly say that a lot of people don't know how to study. So the way you want to study is when you read the textbook, you want to be taking notes or essentially rewriting the textbook or getting a synopsis of the textbook in your own handwriting. And then once you've done that with the chapter, then you write a quiz on your notes. And same thing with the professor's lecture notes. You take the lecture notes and then you write a quiz on the lecture notes. And then what you do is you use the quizzes to quiz you against your notes. Once I read the textbook and had written my notes out of the textbook, I never looked at the textbook again. Okay, none of this highlighting and going back and reading the high points. That's an ineffective method for human beings to absorb and integrate information. I would read textbook essentially paragraph by paragraph, and then synthesize what it is that I had read and then what I wanted to remember out of each paragraph. And then I would have, like in a 28-page chapter, I might have 6 pages of notes that are chapter 1, all about George Washington. And then I would have a quiz on my notes. And then I would use that quiz to periodically quiz myself and then peek at my notes immediately when I couldn't figure out what the answer is, so that you get immediately reinforcement and get the information integrated. If you do that, the other kids won't do it, and you'll do well.
Great. Thank you. Okay, this one I don't think this is a long answer, but I'll ask it because we have a few more minutes. Gitty says, do you have any pain management tools when you don't want to take medicine and you have a migraine?
I actually don't know much about this. I mean, people will say migraine, and we don't necessarily know what the cause of that migraine is. Could be a lot of things. Person could be dehydrated. They could likely have some muscle spasms in their neck. Obviously, people will use ice, sometimes using heat packs and ice packs alternatively on the back of your neck can actually help the vasocongestion release if that happens to be the cause of what's going on. But, migraines are awful. And one day, one thing that we have seen at True North Health Center, I've seen two things. First of all, elimination diets. If you suffer from migraines often, then a McDougall elimination diet can be a godsend, and sometimes that will turn the key for people. Also, water fasting. Period of water fasting sometimes can be essential for a person healing in a way that will strip away those migraines, and they may leave you for years after a water fast. So those are. But in terms of what to do during a migraine, I couldn't really tell you.
Okay. All right. Well, that's great. So thank you for being honest when you don't know something. It's so rare when that actually happens, but it's probably just because it's not your area of expertise.
All kinds of things I don't know, obviously.
Really?
All right. What else do we got?
Okay. Well, I'm almost afraid to ask this question, but because if you say something, this could put me out of business, but okay. I'm going to ask it because that's the kind of person I am. It's from Robin, who's both in the fan of Beat Your Genes podcast group and in the Ultimate Weight Loss program. And I met her at True North at the holiday extravaganza. And she says, Can you please ask Dr. Lisle about the power of competition to lose weight in a support group like the Ultimate Weight Loss program? See, I personally don't see it as a competition, but that's maybe how she sees it. And she says, is competition in this area positive and healthy?
That's an interesting question, and the only way to answer it is to unfortunately say that you can't be answered except in the context of individual differences. So every coach knows that every player has a different psychology about that, and so so they have to be careful about how they manage it. So there's going to be people that in a competitive situation, they may construe situations as competitive, and it may be useful because it may amp them up to get more focused and to push. This is a bizarre thing that happens at True North spontaneously, is that there can be a competitive feel as to how long people water fast. I must have been there for 10 years before I even knew that this was going on. And some client at some point clued me in. And I remember being just flabbergasted, and I will forget about it. A year will go by and I will forget that it's going on. And then some client will again allude to that. And I'll be like, good God, people, like this is not a competition, for crying out loud, but people are people. And so people will see competitive process where there is none. If it comes to fasting, I'm a total lightweight. In other words, 4 days and I'm like, oh my God, I've got to get out of this. I can't stand it. And other people will go, 3 weeks and just be like, hey, what's the problem? So, I just don't see this as a competitive process. And weight loss, I don't see as a competitive process. You could, it's certainly the end result. It has a competitive undertone to it. In other words, you're trying to become more attractive as a result of being in better condition so that you can compete for esteem. So there's an underlying competitive necessity that is driving some of this. But competitive with other people that are doing it, that reminds me of True North and the fasting. In other words, it's not set up to be competitive. We don't want it to be competitive. It's set up as nothing other than a supportive environment for you to do something difficult. And that's how I see AJ's group, and that's how I see other things like this. In other words, if the fact that there's a competitive aspect to it, if it scares some people off, it may scare some people off because it may not be their cup of tea, and I would understand that. If it may be very helpful for some other people. I happen to know some people that have been in AJ's group. I happen to know that they're competitive, and I happen to know that it has driven them to be more successful. So that is true, and there's no stopping that. it is probably also the case that some people have felt some of that competitive scent from time to time, and it has felt like it wasn't a comfortable place for them, and they've wandered away, which, essentially they've tried to find a place that's good for them. I think that as a true north, it's not emphasized. At the McDougall program, there's always a thing at the end, like what person lost the most weight, and people applaud for them, but really it's not, or whose cholesterol went down the most, but it's almost an interest in other people's experiences, because we're watching them and we're watching that they in fact are being successful at the same process, and that we can be too, except that we may be going at a different rate, and that's fine. Okay, so sometimes that's valuable for people to see that it's not just me that's having a little bit of success here, but a whole bunch of people are having a little bit of success, and a few people are having a lot of success, at which point that gives us some encouragement that we're definitely on the right track. And that's how I see that.
Right. Well,
Okay.
Yeah, that's terrific, because I think that sometimes when they see that it is possible, it helps them. We do something in Ultimate Weight Loss called Transformation Tuesday, where we're not trying to rub it in people's faces, but we want them to know, hey, I did this and maybe you can too. So
Absolutely.
that's great. Well, I just want, we have people really watching from all over the world: Spain, England, Norway, Nova Scotia, U.S. Virgin Islands. So you are a multinational celebrity, Dr. Lisle.
Oh, how cool is that?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
So, again, guys, I've been keeping his website posted the whole time, esteemdynamics.com, where you get a lot of great free resources or book a private consultation. And thank you so much. We got through all but 2 questions, so maybe you'll come back again and we'll get to ask you those. So
Be a great pleasure, AJ.
Absolutely. Thank you guys so much for watching another episode of Healthy Living Live. Thank you, Dr. Lisle. I'm Chef AJ, and I make healthy taste delicious.